and welcome to today's webinar. I'm your host, Kate Barrett, and I will shortly be introducing and handing over to Dr. Feldman for today's content. But first, I wanted to take the time to really thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. This is a live Q&A session with Dr. Feldman. We are here and we are ready to answer your questions. So please do feel free to ask them. Pop them in the comments box on the right-hand side of your screen at any point during the webinar and we'll work our way through them. Now, of course, if you're listening to this on the recording afterwards, you won't be able to ask your questions live, but you will be able to hear the answers to everybody else's questions. But for those of you joining us live today, we are here to answer those questions. And Dr. Feldman's also going to talk you through some of the key elements of this year's conference and why you can't afford to miss on attending in May this year. Now, what I can tell you in advance is that 95% of last year's conference attendees said that they would attend another medical legal consulting conference given by Dr. Feldman, and that the conference did an outstanding job of effectively addressing the stated learning goals. Now, for over 12 years, Dr. Feldman has consulted full-time to attorneys on all of their medical issues and questions. He's developed an entirely new kind of consulting approach and has trained over 400 physicians from all over the country over the past 10 years. And over 800 physicians have been to one of his previous conferences. All of Dr. Feldman's consulting is pre-litigation, pre-trial, and helps attorneys to manage the medical aspects of cases, increase case value, and save attorney time. Dr. Feldman helps attorneys to help their clients to negotiate and settle cases and get the appropriate medical care the client needs. He does not participate in medical malpractice cases and does no expert witness work. So, Dr. Feldman is going to talk you through how you can get the systems, tools, medical knowledge, and practical guidance that you need to open up a whole new income stream without being beholden to a hospital, corporation, or institution. So, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Feldman.
Well, thank you, Kate, and thanks for doing such a great job as our moderator over the years. It's been a number of years now. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this webinar. It's just so great to have so many of you participating today. We'll talk about the upcoming Medical Legal Consulting Conference and answer any of your questions about what this kind of consulting is all about. I'm going to start with a few brief remarks and then throw it open for your questions. As many of you know, burnout is an increasingly serious problem for physicians, affecting over 50% of clinicians in some studies. In fact, I read an interesting study that 1 of every 4 physicians is looking to do some non-clinical work, in part to ease the stress of today's clinical practice. I'm going to briefly discuss a non-clinical consulting opportunity that you can do full-time as part of an existing practice or in lieu of retiring. I'll tell you that I found non-clinical consulting, specifically medical legal consulting, to be really interesting, fun, actually. I've worked out of a home office for the entire 12 years I've done medical legal consulting, and I've done well over 2,500 interesting, rewarding, and lucrative cases. In fact, you're in the right place if you're looking for a great way to add to or change your professional direction, and you want to learn about why you should attend the upcoming Medical Legal Consulting Conference, May 2nd and 3rd, 2020 in Denver. In fact, if you want to register now, call 303-619-0777. You can also register by clicking on the green Secure Your Spot button in the upper right corner of your screen. Before going on, let me take just a moment and let you know Medical legal consulting has not only been a great addition to my career, but to the careers of physicians who have attended past conferences. Listen to what Dr. James Kemmler has to say. For a handful of reasons, I decided to attend Dr. Armin Feldman's medical consultant course. In the first full year of starting this process as a part time job, in addition to my orthopedic practice, we generated approximately $100,000. I'd like to thank Dr. Feldman for teaching this course and helping me to codify our process. In fact, whether you're interested in learning about a new way to use your hard-earned medical knowledge or a new way to find a lucrative addition to your practice or retirement, you have definitely come to the right place. I can tell you in this age of constant change in the practice of medicine, physicians after attending my conference they've called me, they've emailed me with how this conference really helped to change their lives for the better, both in terms of practice satisfaction and in terms of wealth. Might sound too good to be true, right? But that's the repeated feedback I've gotten from doctors who have attended a past conference. And at this year's conference, you'll be able to directly talk with and question doctors using my system and hear about their experience doing this kind of work. So you see, for the past 12 years, I've been a full-time medical consultant in legal cases. It's important to say I don't act as a medical expert and I don't participate in medical malpractice cases. There is a big difference between a medical consultant and a medical expert witness in legal matters. In fact, they're two completely different things. And you can learn how to be a medical consultant at the conference. When doctors and lawyers think about lawyers hiring doctors, they really only think of one thing, and that's hiring doctors to be expert witnesses. Over 12 years ago, I started, and now through the years have been refining a new branch of forensic medicine that involves working as a medical consultant in civil as opposed to criminal cases. All of this lucrative work, as Kate said, is pre-litigation, pre-trial, and the work is not specialty specific. Any doctor in any specialty can be trained to work as a medical consultant in legal cases. I answer any kind of medical question an attorney has in their ongoing cases, and you can too. In fact, I'll teach you exactly how to do just that at the conference. This work is designed to help attorneys settle cases for better value with less attorney time. In all of our work, we're doing two things. First, we're helping attorneys better negotiate and settle cases for better value, for more money. And we're helping attorneys get the appropriate medical care for their clients. Now, I also want to say that the work is really rewarding. I'm helping people who would not have otherwise been afforded the medical consultation help that they desperately need. In fact, I was just working on a newsletter that we're sending out this month, talking about how medical consultants can actually, uh, because of our view of the entire case, find diagnoses and conditions that have been missed in the process of the client of the attorney receiving their medical care, as one example. All of our work is either in personal injury cases or workers' compensation cases. But I want to reiterate and emphasize a doctor in any specialty can do this work. And at the conference, I'll teach you how to do just that. You see, in these areas of the law, personal injury and workers' compensation, approximately 9 out of 10 cases settle. In other words, the cases are negotiated and then a settlement is reached and the case never goes to trial. So anything that we can do as physician medical consultants to help attorneys negotiate and settle cases for increased case value with less attorney time is very, very appealing to many attorneys, actually to most attorneys. In fact, I'm very rarely asked about my specialty. Attorneys are much more interested in knowing if my reports, medical opinions, and other services will help them to better negotiate and settle their cases. Now, obviously, if the case is going to court in that 1 out of 10 cases on which you'll consult that doesn't settle, that is, the attorney will do depositions and go to trial, the attorney will need medical experts in every area of injury. But as you'll see at the conference, you'll be involved in those 9 of 10 cases that are negotiated and settled. That is, where the attorney needs well reasoned and researched medical opinions, reports, and other services that any good physician can provide. So let's talk about what the conference is really all about. In other words, what we'll discuss, what you can earn, why attend this year, and who attends and why. Let's start with what we'll discuss. This conference is really about two things. First, how to start up and then successfully run your medical legal consulting business long term. And that's day one. Second, this conference is about the medicine you need to know, and that's most of day two. Let's take a look at the actual course outline. So breakfast and lunch is included, and we'll start with an introduction to non-clinical work, how you add to your paradigm. In other words, how do you take that leap to non-clinical consulting? I'll follow that up by talking about what medical legal consulting is really all about. I'll go into a great deal of detail in describing and helping you to understand the little over 15 different kinds of services and consultations that you can provide these attorneys. After the break, I'll come back and talk about some small business principles for your medical legal consulting business to help your business be more successful, to run more smoothly, and certainly with less aggravation. Then my great friend, Attorney John Ferris, will talk about what you need to know about the law, specifically what you need to know about personal injury law, workers' compensation law, and something I think you need to know also the actual working of attorney offices. After lunch, we will get into the nuts and bolts. We'll start with a step-by-step detailed plan on how you launch your medical legal consulting business. In other words, how you go from zero to up and running with your medical legal consulting business. I'll follow that immediately with a detailed step-by-step practical plan on how you market your consulting business. The marketing plan is really about two things. First, it is how you get your attorney clients. And second, how you keep your attorney clients long term. Marketers say that if you don't maintain what marketers call top of mind consciousness, even your best clients, your best customers are going to forget about you. So there's two parts to that marketing plan. Then after the break, my great friend, Dr. Tom Moore from Birmingham, Alabama, will talk about his experience doing medical legal consulting using my business system. Tom is a professor of anesthesiology at University of Alabama, and he's been doing this work for over 4 years now using my system. And 18 months ago, he moved to 60% anesthesia, and now he does medical legal consulting 40% of the time. I'll then follow that up talking about how you can go from good to great. And then after the break, we will finish day one with a step-by-step plan on how you operate your medical legal consulting business day to day. Then on day two, We'll start with what I call the 10-minute meeting. That's your initial meeting with an attorney prospect. And again, I'll take you through a step-by-step plan and script to prepare you, and you will be completely ready to go out and meet with attorneys after that part of the training. Then Attorney John Ferris will come back and he'll talk about how we as medical consultants, as opposed to medical experts, how we as medical consultants actually add value to legal cases. And then we'll follow that. I'll show you a video presentation of me doing a real 10-minute meeting, a real initial meeting with attorneys. I had known this attorney prior to going out and meeting with him. When I owned my outpatient head injury rehabilitation clinics, we knew each other. He used to refer his clients to my clinic in Denver. And I said, would you mind terribly if I showed up with a couple of videographers? And he was good with that. So you'll see it's not edited. It's a real meeting. And it's just the presentation straight through. After the break, I'll come back and talk about how you write great medical legal reports. After lunch, we'll get into case studies. Really help you to know the medicine that you need to know through the case studies. I'll go over many of the common kinds of injuries and conditions that you'll see on a day-to-day basis. Then a presentation on understanding personality types. This is really critical for your success in your medical legal consulting business. And the feedback over the years is that not only is it helpful in your business, but physicians tell me it's been helpful in their day-to-day lives as well. We'll then do the medical workshop and finish up with what to do next. All right, let's determine how much you can earn. So the way that I've been advising other physicians over the last 10 years of training physicians is do an informal survey of your colleagues. Determine what you think is the average fee per hour for doing medical expert work in your community. Now, obviously, there's a range, but it really isn't that hard to figure the average. Once you have a good determination of that average, as a medical consultant, you're going to be charging somewhere between half to 2/3 of what the medical experts charge. Then determine how many hours a week you're going to devote to doing medical legal consulting. I charge 1 hourly fee for everything I do. So multiply the number of hours you're going to be working times your hourly fee. And I think you'll find that you will be very pleasantly surprised. All right. Now, here's why it's important to attend this year. So you can still get in on the ground floor of this new field. There are about 1 million MDs and DOs in the country. And I have had the privilege and the opportunity to train really only a handful, a thimbleful, based off of that 1 million number. So although I've been able to train over 400 doctors, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to how many physicians there are in the country. So it's really not too late to be in the first wave. There is a tremendous demand for these kinds of consultative services, and the supply is still actually quite low. So who attends? Doctors from any and every specialty, those physicians who want to start doing some non-clinical consulting, and doctors looking to take back their autonomy. We are all aware of the slow death of private practice that is upon us. Physicians are nothing more than employees of hospitals or big corporations. This is an opportunity for you to own your own business and have that refreshing feeling of being your own boss, setting your own rules. And finally, doctors looking to do something full-time, or those who want to consult on a part-time basis as part of an existing practice, or those physicians who want to do something interesting and lucrative in lieu of retiring. Okay, Kate, that is my introduction. I would like to throw the webinar open for questions. I am going to put the slide back on with information on the date, the website link, or phone number to register, or you can register by clicking on the green Secure Your Spot Now button in the upper right corner of your screen. So I would be happy to take your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Feldman. That was really interesting and really insightful as to what's going to be happening during the conference and all of the value that there's going to be. For everyone listening, please do put your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side. We've already got some questions coming in. We've had some questions that were submitted before the webinar for some people who weren't able to attend. So we can go through some of those as well. As a reminder, as Dr. Feldman, if you would like to go ahead and secure your spot at the conference, and please do are selling fast, you can click on the green Secure Your Spot Now button on the top right of your screen. You can also call 303 619 0777. So let's go through some of your questions. The first one comes from Scott, and Scott asks, what are the average fees per hour in the Midwest?
Scott, I would love to answer that question for you, but actually I can't, and I will tell you why. We have fair trade practices in the United States, and in fact, it is actually against the law for physicians to discuss fees. And every time you do it in a public setting, by the way, you're subject to a fine of $71,000. So not only is it against the law, but you can be fined for it. So what I told you about fees is the best that I can do with regard to, I just can't give you any specifics.
Okay, thank you very much. Christine has asked, how do you find consulting opportunities?
So you're going to be marketing your own medical legal consulting business. Exactly how to do that, plan to do that, scripts to do that, suggestions on how to do that are all part of what you'll learn. But here's what I can tell you about the marketing plan. First of all, it doesn't have anything to do with advertising. In fact, it really doesn't have to have anything to do with spending money. What it has to do with is old-fashioned elbow grease. There is no getting around the fact that you have to call attorneys and you have to meet with them face to face. You see, that's really the only way to get business. The services that I offer and physicians doing this offer, these services are new to attorneys, and the services that we provide are not standard operating procedure in attorney offices until you go meet with them, educate them, and make it so. So, and by the way, once you do that, the vast majority, some don't, of course, but the vast majority of attorneys that you meet with face to face become clients. So, how to do that, scripts to do that, help to do that, interaction to do that, it is all part of the training at the conference. And tools to take home with you to do that are all part of the conference. You get a conference binder when you register, and part of that binder is like a mini manual where it has all of the tools that you need as well as the instruction that you get.
Fabulous. That's a really valuable piece of content that they're going to be taking away from the conference there. Aaron has asked, is there an option to buy the video of the May 2nd, 3rd conference if we can't attend?
There may be. The last year we live streamed the conference. We're considering live streaming it again. If we do live stream it, there will be a video of the conference available on demand at the new um, streaming TV channel for conferences, Medical Ed TV.
Fabulous. But if you are able to attend on those dates, Aaron, I would highly suggest that you do, because of course, attending in person, you get all those networking opportunities. You get the opportunity to actually speak to Dr. Feldman and the other speakers directly, and especially if you buy our VIP tickets. So, Dr. Feldman, do you want to just kind of give people a breakdown of the two different ticket types that we have this year?
Yes, yes. We're doing something new this year by popular demand. There is a general admission ticket, and the registration, the tuition fee is $13.95. This year, for the first time, we also have a VIP option for $16.45, and that option includes additional tools and materials to take home, lunch with one of the conference presenters, one of the three conference presenters, including me, seating in the first couple of rows, and a goodie bag to take additional materials to take home with you.
Wonderful.
I should also say that we only have 21 of those spots available, and we actually have there are already 15 people coming as VIPs.
I was just about to say that as well. So I haven't actually updated the website with the latest numbers. So please do, if you want a VIP ticket, they are selling extremely quickly. So get in there fast. And our general tickets are selling really fast as well. So make sure you get in with whichever one you feel is most appropriate for you. Okay, so Scott has asked, are there any medical license or board certification requirements?
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. There are the short answer to your question is there are no board certification or licensing requirements. Now, certainly, I suppose theoretically, if you were a medical doctor and you could do this without a license, but really all you really need is a license in some state, and you are good to go. You raise an interesting question about board certification, because now there have been enough physicians. By the way, if somebody hasn't been trained by me, there just aren't physicians around the country doing this. I was a little surprised at that, but now with the advantage of looking back over the years, that's just happens to be the case. But the physicians that I have trained are now requesting, kind of clamoring that we start our own society, and that we do have training and testing. Obviously, people that are already trained will be grandfathered in, and that we form our own society, as this kind of consulting now really has become a new subspecialty of forensic medicine.
Okay, lovely. Naren has asked, what is the conversion rate or takers after the conference? I'm not quite sure what that question is referring to. Would that make sense to you, Dr. Feldman, or do we need some clarification there?
Maybe what he's saying is, if you come to the conference, how many of those doctors actually do this?
Perfect.
And if that's the question, I can't tell you statistics, because we don't keep track of everyone, but I get emails and phone calls all the time from physicians who are doing this. So I would say it's not a small number. In other words,
Lovely.
if you're asking, can I do this after I come to the conference? The answer is yes. One of the very first things that I say at the conference is that, I'm quoting myself here, when you leave this conference, you will have all of the tools, and all of the instruction needed to go home and successfully do this.
Fabulous. So hopefully that's answered the question now. And if not, then just give us a little bit of a clarification and we'll come back to that. William has asked a follow-up from one of the previous questions. What resources are available for those who cannot attend?
Yeah, keep your eyes open for emails from me if we move ahead with the live streaming. We'll have something definite about that within the next 30 days. If we do live stream, obviously we'll record the conference and you can either watch by live stream as it happens or a recorded version later. Now, I'm not sure if you're asking me this, but if you cannot attend the conference and you want training, there is another way to do it. There are two ways to do it. You can come to the conference. I also have a medical legal consulting coaching program. That is a remote training program. It is a year-long program. Obviously, it's more intensive than a two-day conference. And there are, you get all of the tools and manuals. Actually, you get some things that it's just impractical for me to try to give at a conference, along with 1 year of coaching with me.
Okay, and how can people get more information about that? Just
Oh,
drop
thank
you
you.
an email directly.
Yes. So if you want more information about the coaching program, first of all, you can put your name and email address in the chat box, and I'll get back to you. You can also email me directly. My email address is Armin, ARMIN, at golegal, LEGAL, doc, DOC. Armin at golegaldoc.com.
Wonderful. So I have put that into the chat box so that people have got that email address right there. Okay, fabulous. Paul has asked, how do you handle malingering patients or those who are dishonest?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and there's here's the answer. One of the great things, there's a kind of a two-part answer to this question. Part one of the great things about being on this side of the fence, that is working with plaintiff and a claimant, plaintiff on the PI side, claimant on the workers' comp side, attorneys, is that these attorneys want and value our straight up medical opinions. These attorneys, unlike attorneys that may be influenced by secondary gain issues if they're working on the insurance side, but these attorneys want our opinions. They don't want to be carrying loser cases with their time and with their money. So if I feel that the client of the attorney is malingering or perhaps driven primarily by secondary gain issues, secondary gain issues are unconsciously driven, but by secondary gain issues, then I'll let the attorney know. So typically what happens is the attorney and I will talk about the case. I'll review the medical records. I'll then interview the client of the attorney. 95% of the time I do that by phone. And then I do whatever research I need. But in this case, after I interview the client, and if it's my opinion that this the evidence points to malingering or secondary gain driven, then I'll pick up the phone. I'll call the attorney. I'll let them know that, and at that point, I'm out of the case. I send my bill for my time, and what the attorney does is they typically just try to settle that case as quickly as they can for whatever they can get. So sometimes doctors ask me about being a hired gun. And the answer is the one I just gave you. You know, I'm never a hired gun. I never face the kind of secondary gain issues that some physicians that work on the insurance side may experience because these attorneys value whatever my opinion is, and whatever it is, it's good for them and it's good for the case. Now, the second part of the answer is the interesting thing is the number of people malingering or primarily driven by secondary gain, in my experience, I've done, over a couple thousand cases, is actually very small. Most people that have been injured, either in a PI situation, auto accident, slip and fall, auto ped accident, whatever, or a work-related accident and workers' comp. These are hardworking, everyday, honest people, injured, no fault of their own, who suffer real injuries.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Henry has asked, can you be both a medical consultant and a medical expert if need be on a particular case?
So, yes, the answer is yes. So, th- part one of the answer is you can have a very, very successful medical legal consulting business acting as a medical consultant without ever acting as an expert witness. If you want to act as an expert witness, you can certainly offer it as one of the services in your armamentarian, that you can act as an expert in your specialty. Uh, so you could do both, but it certainly isn't necessary to be highly successful doing this kind of work. Actually,
Okay,
I
that's good
talk
to
about
know.
that in some detail at the conference. I have a small section where I talk about being a medical expert. Obviously, it's not a topic that I cover in detail at this conference because we're talking about something completely different than that. But I do talk about uh, what it means to be a medical expert and how it can blend in or figure into what you're doing as a medical consultant.
Wonderful. So, Patricia has a slightly different question.
Mhm,
She says that she's a nurse of 40 years and in 2006 started her own business and have now retired and
mhm,
has a BS in legal studies. And she's also worked for several attorneys. She'd like to attend the conference.
mhm.
She hasn't asked a question with that, it's more of a statement. So, that would be lovely, Patricia, to have you there. But do you want to talk about perhaps the nurses side and
Sure,
that situation and attending the conference?
sure. So uh, I love nurses. I'm married to a nurse. I think nurses do great work. We couldn't live without them. But unless you are, and this is actually maybe questionable too, but unless you're a nurse practitioner, oh no. Unless you're, are you still there? Hello?
Yes, yes, we're still here.
My screen just went black. I thought I lost my power for a second. But unless you're a nurse practitioner, this probably isn't for you because I'll tell you what sets a medical consultant apart. I know there are nurses that do medical legal consulting and they do a very good job, but what sets us apart as MDs and DOs is that we can render medical opinions. And that is a highly valued aspect of our legal system, the fact that we can render medical opinions. And when you boil it all down, there are a lot of services that I offer, but when you boil it all down, and what separates medical consultants from anyone else is that we can render medical opinions. So obviously, only physicians can render medical opinions.
Okay, so I wonder if that answers the next question then. So, Naren has asked, what's the difference between expert and consultant in medico-legal language?
Right. So a medical expert is providing um, medical expertise, but primarily they're providing expert witness testimony at trial. That's really what they're there for. And they're doing that in their specialty. And a medical consultant works on those 9 of 10 cases that never go to trial. And a medical consultant is available to answer any kind of medical question that the attorney has in a case. And so I may answer, I may work on a case involving a rotator cuff injury, or another one of depression, or another one of a head injury, or another one of complex regional pain syndrome, or one of soft tissue injuries, or a case of multiple fractures, or any kind of a case. And the reason that I'm able to do that is I back up my medical opinions with evidence from the medical literature. So I never do a case without doing medical research. Now, when I use the word evidence, I'm using that generically, but I'm also using it in a technical legal sense. Uh, a medical consultant is providing the medical evidence based both medical opinions backed up by medical research, uh, that the attorney can use to negotiate and settle that case. So let me tell you how that works practically. So now, of course, this doesn't happen to me anymore. I've been doing this for 10 years. But let's say I write a report on a rotator cuff injury. And by the way, my specialty was psychiatry. I'm also a psychoanalyst. My area of specialty was mild traumatic brain injury. I wound up owning outpatient head injury rehabilitation clinics around the country that I sold a number of years ago. And then when I was looking for something new to do, I thought, well, maybe what I could do is just consult to attorneys on any kind of medical question that they have in a case. And that turned out to be a good thing, and the rest is history. But let's say I write a report on a rotator cuff case, and it's, in my opinion, differs from other doctors that are involved on the opposing counsel side. So my report, and they're trying to settle some issue in the negotiation for the settlement. And so my report that I write for the attorney that hires me goes over to opposing counsel. Well, what's the first thing opposing counsel is going to do? They're going to look me up. And they may come back. Of course, they don't do this now, but they earlier they may have come back to my attorney and said, "Well, wait a minute, Dr. Feldman isn't an expert in rotator cuff cases. Why should we pay attention to this?" And what the attorney that hired me will say is, "Well, Dr. Feldman acts as a medical consultant for me in all my cases." And I can tell you that he uses the exact same literature that if you force me to take this case to trial and I have to hire a retained expert, my retained expert is actually using the same evidence, the same medical evidence that my medical consultant is quoting in his report. So if we can't get this settled, when I hire my retained expert, they're going to say the exact same thing at trial. So let's get this settled. And that's how it works on a practical basis. And it has worked for years. It has worked for me. It has worked for hundreds of physicians across the country now acting as medical consultants. And we help. I think we help the attorney, we help the case, we help the system, we help society, we certainly help the client of the attorney to get these cases settled so they don't have to go to trial.
Wonderful. So James, who I think prefers to be called Jim from the comment on his question as well, has asked a question about insurance. So if you are retired, do you have to continue malpractice insurance? What's my liability?
Right. Good question. And there are a couple of answers to it. First answer is the bottom line answer. If you are worried about that, if you're concerned about that, what you should do is hire an attorney in your state, probably only take the person a couple hours of their time, and have them give you a written opinion regarding that question. Now, here's the second part of the answer. I am not an attorney. I want to make that clear. But I don't think that you need medical malpractice insurance in order to do this. I don't carry it myself. Now, what I am hired to do is I'm hired to render medical opinions. All of my clients are attorneys. Remember, I don't work for the client of the attorney. I have no patients. I work for the attorney. I don't work for the client of the attorney. Well, attorneys are certainly capable of suing people. And never say never, knock on wood, but in 12 years of doing this, I haven't even come close to a sniff of anyone threatening to sue me. I think the reason, I do a good job, but I suppose you could get sued anyway. But I think the main reason why I don't get sued is I am hired to render medical opinions. As long as you render that medical opinion in good faith, you talk to the attorney, you read the medical records, you interview the client and the attorney, you do the appropriate medical research, you write an appropriate report. Even if the attorney didn't like your opinion, which really doesn't happen, but even if they didn't like your opinion, it's very hard to sue someone if you hire them to render an opinion and they render it in good faith.
Okay, so they don't need
I,
any other type of
well,
insurance.
I was going to just comment on that. What I do recommend, Kate and everyone, is I do recommend that you get errors and omissions insurance that any kind of consultant to the legal system should have. Whether you're a structural engineer, a police officer, a physician, accident reconstructionist, you should have errors and omissions insurance. Errors and omissions insurance, the cost of it varies state to state. Typically runs somewhere, depending on what state you're in, between 500 and maybe 1,500 a year.
Okay, that's good to know. So William has asked, can you provide us with previous attendees who have successfully begun this service?
I wish I could, but I don't keep track of the. I don't make a formal attempt to keep track of the people that went to the conference. But here's what I do suggest you do: go to the conference website, and the URL is up on your screen: http://mdbizcon.com/medleg2020. Go there, and on that site you will see testimonials. I think there are 15 or 20 of them from physicians who have actually been there. And the testimonial lists the physician's name and the city in which they live. From there, you can look them up. And if you want to talk to them, go to the website, read the testimonials, and call some of them and have them tell you what they think.
That's a great idea. And just as a reminder, that link is on the screen right now. But if you click the big green button at the top right of your screen that says secure your spot now, you'll find all of that information there. And you'll also be able to choose your ticket type. So just as a reminder, we have 2 ticket types this year. We have our standard entry ticket type, which also includes lunch on both days. But we also have our VIP ticket type, which includes a whole range of VIP bonuses, including not just lunch each day, but lunch on the first day with the speakers at the conference, including Dr. Feldman, a goodie bag, and priority seating at the front of the hall. So well worth getting one of those very limited tickets if you can. So I would suggest doing that right now. So big green button, top right-hand side of your screen. The URL is also on your screen if you'd like to just go directly there, or you can call us straight away on 303-619-0777 and we can take your ticket order through the phone there as well. So Henry has asked,
Excuse me, Kate,
sorry,
before
yes.
Henry, let me say one more thing. So I talk about this at the conference. I think there's a question behind the question, and let me answer it. The biggest reason why physicians fail at this is they either don't carve out the minimum amount of time necessary in order to make this go, about 8 hours a week, or they don't take this as seriously as anything else that they do in their professional lives. Now, if you don't do those 2 things and you just follow the system, follow the recipe, this has worked for hundreds of physicians everywhere in the country. So one of the things I say at the conference is, I know it's a cliche, but you will get out of this conference what you put into it once you get home. So as long as you don't do the 2 things that I just mentioned, follow the recipe, follow the system, it'll work for you.
Fabulous. So I've actually got a follow-up question from that. So you just mentioned it in your answer there, but let's just clarify that for everybody. So how much time does this take? And is it a good part-time job, or do you need to do it full-time?
Yeah, great question. So there are physicians that do it full time. There are others that do it in lieu of retiring, but the vast number of physicians do this as part of an existing practice. It's completely doable as part of an existing practice, and most physicians do it that way.
Wonderful. And does the conference provide any CME credits?
Yeah, 15 category one CME credits.
Okay, that's good to know. Excellent. So, Henry, we're going to come on to your question now. So, Henry has asked, do you also, as part of the report, render an opinion about the billed charges and future medical care?
Yes. So, first thing I should tell you is as medical consultants, we are not holding ourselves out as certified life care planners. That is very clear. But as part of some of our reports, we do give our opinions, and these would be opinions to a reasonable degree of medical probability of future medical care and costs. And no one expects us to be accurate down to the last dollar, but they do expect us to do the appropriate research and answer that particular question to a reasonable degree of medical probability.
Okay, wonderful. James has asked, so Jim, I believe this is, if you retire to a rural area, is marketing a large burden per previous or current doctors participating? So for those who are already doing it, do you find that marketing is a large burden, particularly when they're in a rural area?
Right. So here's the issue with the rural area. You need a population base of about 250,000 people to have enough of the right kind of attorneys to support one physician doing this full time. So even most rural areas, if you think about catchment areas, will and if you're retired, certainly will have a population base large enough to support a physician who wants to do this on a part-time basis. But the other issue is that even in rural areas, most people are close enough to a big enough city that they can bunch their appointments, initial appointments with attorneys, and do maybe two or three on the same day. Once you have an attorney client, thereafter, almost everything is done by phone, US mail, and email. So now, of course, you want to, for marketing purposes, you want to see your best clients two or three times a year, but most everything is done remotely after that first meeting.
Lovely. So we've got a few minutes left until the top of the hour. So if anyone does have any other questions, please pop them in the chat box. So there was just a couple of questions that were sent in before the webinar as well. Do you
Mhm.
have to be a certain speciality to do this work?
Yeah, that's a good question. The answer is no. Uh, What really matters is if you if you enjoy lifelong learning, if you have interest in medicine in general, if you have some intellectual curiosity, if you would like to learn about a whole variety of different aspects of medicine, then this is for you. I know that I am a much better rounded, much more educated, much more up to date physician than I would have been based on uh, 12 years of doing thousands of cases and all of the research that went into that. For me, it's been actually a real joy. So you get to solve interesting medical conundrums. You get to learn a lot. You get to use your creativity and your intellect helping people that desperately need the help.
Fabulous. Okay. So William has asked, can you provide a rough estimate of startup costs?
Sure. So the startup costs are actually very small. Obviously, everybody's got a computer. You need to buy some domain names. You need to, maybe some, if you don't have it, some accounting software like QuickBooks Pro. Uh, there are some minimal costs for things like cards and brochures. But um, as I said earlier, the biggest cost is elbow grease. So um, if you're willing to put in the minimum amount of time necessary, follow the plan, uh, and it will work. It's actually a remarkably low cost startup business.
Okay, so when they leave the conference, are they going to be ready to go and get this business up and running? How long is it going to take?
Yeah, the answer is yes, but here's a more specific answer. So you're given a business launch plan that takes you from zero to up and running in your with your business. Up and running is defined as now being in a position to go out and meeting with attorneys. Again, if you put your mind to it, you can get through that business launch plan in about 3 weeks. From the time that you start going out and meeting with attorneys to the time that you should start seeing some cash flow. If you are on average with other physicians around the country doing this, that's typically about 3 months. And from that point forward, you will make money. Now, to the time that you have an absolutely thriving consulting business, it's like starting any other practice. It's going to take about a year.
Okay, that's good to know. And you mentioned earlier they're going to get that marketing plan, that binder. So, what other kind of learning curve is there to get up to speed?
Right. So, uh, the interesting thing about this is, first of all, you'd be surprised at how much you know to start with. But uh, the learning curve is really about your uh, presented a case. There are certain injuries and medical conditions involved in the case. The attorney has certain questions that they need answered. So you get up to speed on the job by doing the research that you need to do. Then along the way, you will learn some of uh, the legal aspects of doing this work that you need to know as well.
Perfect. So, I've got a couple of combined questions here. The first one is, can I work with attorneys anywhere in the country? And then Noreen has asked specifically, are there parts of the country where there is a saturation of these consultants?
Right. So answer to the first question. Every one of these businesses is a local business. By the nature of the business, by the nature of the marketing for the business, it's impractical. It really doesn't make sense to try to solicit business from outside of your local area. There will be plenty of business in your local area. So every business is local. Uh, there is no market that is saturated. So uh, as I said earlier, if you think about a place like, well, let's say Denver, where we have a little over 3 million people. If you need 250,000 people to have enough of the right kind of attorneys to support one physician doing this full time, that means that 12 people could do it here in Denver. Uh, I do it, and I've trained a couple other physicians doing it here in Denver. We don't even bump into one another. So, no, it's not saturated.
Fabulous. Scott has asked, is research billable time?
Yes. I bill by the hour for everything that I do. That includes doing my research time. Includes talking to the attorney. It includes talking to the client. It includes report writing. It includes anything that I do. If the service is acting as a liaison between the attorney and a treating doctor, for example, if the attorney wants to make sure a treating doctor is on board with regard to issues of causation, and I go meet with that treating doctor, that's billable time.
Fabulous. So, how long does the average consult take to do?
Good question. Average consult, somewhere between 5 and 12 hours.
Okay, wonderful. So we're kind of getting to the end of our webinar now. So a couple of final questions from my side that have been sent in previously. And if anyone has any final questions, please do just pop them in the chat box quickly, and we'll answer those for you. So in terms of the specific kinds of consults that you do, can you give us some examples?
Sure. So the service that is most requested that I do is I provide comprehensive medical summary reports with my medical opinions. By the way, the term medical summary report is a term that I just made up, but I think it's quite descriptive of the activity. So these reports can be used for medical case coordination, but far and away, these reports are included in the attorney's settlement demand letter to close out the settlement. And the consistent feedback through the years is, in fact, by using these medical summary reports, attorneys are settling more cases for more money. Now, something that runs a close second is I actually physically sit in and I observe independent medical exams and I write IME rebuttal reports when it's indicated. I also write reports that are specific, that answer specific medical questions in cases, usually helping the attorney to develop or refute a particular medical theory of the case based on the medical fact pattern. As I mentioned a moment ago, I act as a liaison between attorneys and treating doctors and a whole variety of other services.
That's good to know. So, my final question, Dr. Feldman, before we let everyone go back to their days, is what is the top reason or the top couple of reasons that you would say someone needs to attend this year's conference?
Right. Well, I suppose the top reason is if you are looking for something new to do, something to add to what you're doing now, if you're one of those 1 in 4 physicians looking to do some non-clinical work, if you're feeling some frustration with regard to all the rules and regulations that we face now, if you have an interest in helping to improve the quality of your work life and make a lucrative income at it, then this is for you. Uh, the and if you want more information about that, go to the website and talk to some of the people that were there. Um, the other thing I would say is, we're not going to be on the ground floor forever. Um, it's interesting when I first started promoting my training program, I faced the problem of people wondering if I was selling snake oil but now uh, uh, it's interesting. I get emails thanking me for being the pioneer in this field, and physicians are clamoring for our own society and our own certification. So it's become a subspecialty of forensic medicine that really anybody can do. But get in now while the demand's high, but the supply is still low.
Fabulous. Dr. Feldman, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you to everyone who has joined us live on the webinar or indeed is listening to this on the replay, which will be sent out as well. So you can go back through any of the questions that have been asked today and the information that's been shared. So as a reminder, please do click on the big green button on your screen or call us now on 303 619 0777 and secure your spot at this conference. Don't miss out. We have sold out every single year, and this year will absolutely be no different. The tickets are really selling fast. And I know that everyone says that, but it is absolutely true, particularly our VIP tickets, which are a very limited number and give you all of those extra bonuses and benefits. So please do get in there now. We would love to see you at this year's conference. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks everyone for attending.